Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. I am your host, Jan Washington. This is a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. I would like to extend my gratitude in you listening to this podcast. It means everything to me, and I hope it is clear that this subject matter is so important to me. I care about our people, our future, and making a positive change in this nation. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. Today, we will do a solo episode, and I want to acknowledge our prior guests that we had earlier last month, Michael T. Williams, and we had AFL Levi earlier in the month. He'll be joining us again for the December year-end review. So we appreciate our guests, and I just want to shout them out. Also, guys, I wanted to bring your attention to the new website, www.wokebyaccident.net. And so that is up and running, and you can listen to the podcast there and see really cool information and videos and such. And then also on the Facebook page, which is also new, you'll see that is up and running. Woke by Accident on Facebook now is available, and you can actually subscribe to the podcast through Facebook. So I did want to share those updates. So on this episode, we'll be talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, and we will also talk about the trial that's getting started here for Kim Potter, who was responsible for the death of Dante Wright we talked about a few months back. Also, we will share some information that you may not have known about Josephine Baker. And then also I want to end with a really interesting story about Anthony Broadwater. All right, so let's get into these stories. On November 19th, Kyle Rittenhouse, who is a white 18-year-old from Antioch, Illinois, was acquitted on all charges in his trial over the shootings of 3 white men, 2 whom died in the aftermath of the demonstrations in Kenosha, Wisconsin in August of 2020. You may recall that there were protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin after the police shooting involving Jacob Blake. Jacob Blake was an African-American man who on August 23rd of 2020 was shot by a white police officer, and the days and weeks which followed, many protests occurred. And so this particular incident occurred in one of those protest matters, and Kyle Rittenhouse had his trial for the shooting of the 3 men who were impacted by the shooting. And so he was acquitted on all the charges. We'll be talking more about this in our year-end review, and we've kind of talked about it earlier in the year here as we have went through the various stages of the case. But it was very surprising that he didn't receive any charges. However, many news sources and just people covering the trial contended that it was a self-defense matter, as one of the men were armed, and I think the other one had a weapon also. So he was facing 6 counts in this particular trial, and he is acquitted. So he goes home. So we'll see what develops next for Kyle Rittenhouse. Just a lot of talk has been going on in the media about this matter, and so I mentioned, it was very surprising to see not any charge be held in this case. You wonder, had it been a black man that was out there with an AR-15 marching up and down the streets, where we get the same results. You know, you just wonder if race had any part in this matter, aside from it being a self-defense. So, like I said, we'll talk about this more in our year-end review, as we will kind of dive deep into some of the hard-hitting stories of 2021. But I did want to talk about that verdict, since that happened since our last episode. I wanted to give you guys some information about the trial that is just getting started for former officer Kim Potter, who, in the killing of Dante Wright, it was reported that the former officer will testify in her manslaughter trial over the killing of Dante Wright. Right now, they are doing jury selection. And so if we recall, Kim Potter, who is white, shot and killed 20-year-old Dante Wright, who is black, during a traffic stop in April of 2021. She is charged with first and second degree manslaughter. At the time, the police chief stated that Potter intended to use her taser, but grabbed her gun instead. Potter and the chief, Tim Gannon, resigned after Wright's killing, and the Brooklyn Center City Council fired the city manager. So we will keep you guys informed, as this trial is just getting underway here, and it is being televised, so you guys can tune in. They did have the jury selection on television today, I noticed, so I'll try to definitely stay in tune to what's going on so that we can share that information with you. This information that we need to know. We really tragic situation, Dante Wright being killed at a traffic stop. You know, there's no reason why someone being pulled over by the police should end in someone losing their life. You know what I mean? If I have sped, or if I have a tail light out, pull me over, give me my ticket, and send me on my way. There is no reason why someone should lose their life for being pulled over by the police. And so if this is a mistake that she made in meaning to pull her taser rather than a gun, you know, we need some accountability in this matter. So definitely will be tuned in to what happens in this particular trial. All right, guys. I am proud to share this next story with you as someone who was born and bred in St. Louis, Missouri. It is about Josephine Baker, who was a singer, dancer, and actor from St. Louis, Missouri. It was announced that Josephine Baker will be granted one of the highest honors in France, a tomb in the Pantheon in Paris, the country's monuments to its heroes. There have only been 80 people granted the honor since the tradition began in Neapolitan times. Baker is the first Black woman honored at the Pantheon, according to the LC Palace. She is also the sixth woman, which includes science Marie Curie and politician Simone Veil. Baker was a household name in France, and we may recall some of her dance routines with the bananas and some of her colonial tropes and different acts that she did in the 1920s. According to CNN, she was not as well known in America for her art, and she later became an advocate for civil rights, and she did speak at the 1963 March on Washington. She was very proud of her humble roots coming up in St. Louis, Missouri. So definitely proud to hear this information about Josephine Baker and receiving this honor. And according to CNN, her body remains buried in Monaco at the request of her family. A coffin was entombed at the site bearing handfuls of dirt from the 4 important locations in her life: St. Louis, Paris, Melendez, the site of her chateau home, and Monaco. So this is pretty dope to get this honor for women and women of color. And her death in 1975, many years ago, and it's just a nice way to acknowledge her for the accomplishments that she gave to the arts. I wanted to share that, and you can look up more about Josephine Baker and listen, her music and films and her dance routines and such. Yeah, thank you for listening. This last story, I mentioned that it was interesting, but really it's sort of disturbing and heartbreaking. But at least there is a happy result or a good result. So it is about Anthony Broadwater, who is a 61-year-old African-American man who wrongfully served 16 years in prison for the rape of the best-selling and well-known author Alice Sebold, who wrote the popular book The Lovely Bones. Broadwater was convicted in 1982. So in a New York State Supreme Court courtroom last week, Broadwater's rape conviction was overturned, and the re-examination of his case found flaws in Broadwater's arrest and the trial after discrepancies came to light when Sebold's memoir about the rape, entitled Lucky, was being adapted into a film. So what happened here is that this author wrote a book about the her being raped in her college days, and they were about to turn this book into a movie. And so the producers and the people working on the film, through their research and diving in and reading the book and going over the case and such, they found serious discrepancies and start looking into things further. And so they're the ones that uncovered this matter, which led to ultimately Broadwater being exonerated. So it's just, that's the part that is really interesting about this, especially with her being a author and having prior books turned into movies. As we know, The Lovely Bones was a movie, and it was a book first. And so here, this article from Newsweek states that the executive producer Tim Muasanti brought these discrepancies to a private investigator and eventually led the district attorney, leading to Broadwater's exoneration. And so that is just really interesting. A fundraiser has been created for Broadwater, and it has quickly gained thousands of dollars in donations, it states. He still has the sexual predator status, so there's nothing he can do about that. But, he spent a good portion of his life behind bars for a crime that he did not commit. Yeah, so he's on the sex offenders register. He's unable to obtain regular work. He's unable to rent apartments, his lawyers state. And so they set up a GoFundMe, and it's really taken off. It states here that several thousands of dollars have been collected in the account. And it says that she did issue an apology to Broadwater, stating that as a traumatized 18-year-old rape victim, she chose to put her faith in the legal system. And so that is where that particular matter stands. But a lot of people are just really disgusted with the matter because this impacted someone's life hugely for you to intentionally wrongly accuse someone in this way. And so, how do we make this right? They've exonerated him, and set up this GoFundMe account, but he can't get that time back. And he is marked with the sexual offender marking on his record for the duration. So it's just really sad, but I wanted to share that since this was a fairly recent news story out, and we'll let you know if there are additional updates. All right. I thank you for listening.
At this time, we are going to go ahead and conclude this episode. We do appreciate you listening. We do invite you to follow us on social media. On Instagram, it is Woke by Accident Podcast. On Twitter, it is Woke by. The Gmail is wokebyaccident@gmail.com. And we are available on all of your favorite streaming platforms. Please go out and follow us, share, leave a review, tell a friend. And every time you listen, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you again, and take care.
Only